again, we'll have you on because let's have you talk about all of that. There she is, view request. Hello? Hello.
Oh, Ryan, let me just change my Wi-Fi. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I'll be back.
Okay,
Don't worry.
sweetheart, go ahead. Okay, come on back. Hey, everyone, I think you're still...
I'm back.
Are you back?
Can you
That
hear
was
me?
fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
You have this beautiful filter.
I know. I
Everything's
don't know.
so
It feels so hazy. I don't mean to have it, but I think just the light outside and
it's all good.
it's so nice
It's
to
so
meet
good.
you. Hello,
It's so
everyone.
nice to meet you. And welcome, everyone.
Hi. So we're here to talk about my book, A Radical Awakening. Thank you for supporting it. And I'm here to answer questions, tell you about it. So let's begin.
Let's begin. So I love this idea that this book came about because you had a version of midlife crisis in a sense where the children had grown up and you're like, this isn't my identity. And how can I define myself now once this isn't my primary role? Can you speak to that a little bit about what happened in that moment and how this opening happened to uncover your authentic self?
Yeah, well, I've been on a spiritual journey since my early 20s and have been teaching meditation but despite all my growth, I call it the coup. I realized that I had been playing a role and I had been really embedded in this idea and image of a perfect mother, the perfect woman, the perfect wife. And I realized I was reaching burnout because I was more married to the image than to my own authentic voice. And I was falling apart. I was exhausted. I was stressed out. I was doing a PhD. Am I going dark, or is it just on my screen?
No, you're good. You went out for a moment, but we're hearing everything.
Right. I don't know why it keeps going dark. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so once my inner world collided, with my outer world, where I was just exhausted, I couldn't keep up with the outer world. That's when things began to disintegrate. And for me, it was a portal to ask, what am I co-creating in my life? How can I reimagine myself? How can I find a new way to be? And I took myself through a journey of growth, which I've talked about in this book. But I do this with most women, most of the time anyway. I take them from fear to courage, from enslavement and dependency to autonomy and emancipation.
Yes, and you've talked about also how we've been asleep as women in this, toxic and encaged in this matrix of toxic patriarchy. Can you speak? And I'm giving just the big headlines, and you talked about us being perpetrators for ourselves.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to talk about that too, because I know I'm just getting right into it.
But no, I like that. So in this cultural matrix that we live in, where we are ensconced in this patriarchal way. And when I say patriarchal, I don't mean it against men. I mean it that it's a system of domination, a system of separation. So because we've been conditioned in this patriarchy, women have become accustomed to standing at the back of the line, playing really small and dim. And because of that, we have these messages inside ourselves to be quiet, to not make trouble, to not stand up, not speak out, not uprise. And that has become our way, a default way of being. And in our own ways, the patriarchy doesn't need to do anything anymore. We oppress ourselves. We look in the mirror and objectify ourselves. Nobody's looking at the fat behind our earlobes, but we are. Nobody's looking at this, we are. And we become our greatest oppressors. Nobody's in the bathroom with us when we stand on the scale. Then we go pee and stand on the scale again. We're doing this insanity to ourselves.
That's right.
So
when we're all alone. Yes.
Right. So we have to take ownership of this. And in taking ownership of our co-creation in this oppression, then we will break free from it. But if we wait for the system to change, or the partner to change, it's not going to happen. We must take the key that's in our hand and open the door. And this book shows you step by step the process that we can go through.
That's right. I love that you talked about the metric of worth that we assign outside of us, and that there's the triple threat. Can you talk about the triple threat?
So as young girls, we were raised to look outward, you know, to mommy and daddy, to be good little girls and to follow the script. And it's not our fault, but we were deeply brainwashed and conditioned to get three things from the outside: approval, validation, and praise. Approval is me permission to exist. Are you there? Okay, I lost you for a second.
You popped out for a sec, but we're back. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we both, approval is, do you give me permission to exist? Honor my existence. Validation is, do you honor my existence? And praise is, do you celebrate my existence? I'm sorry, am I popping out or are you popping out?
I think you are a little bit. I don't know what everyone else is saying, but I think just a touch. It's okay. We're still following along.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're so sweet. So the three things are approval, validation, and praise. We've been conditioned to look for this on the outside. Approval means we wait for people to give us permission to exist. Validation is we ask them for endorsement of our existence, like, is it worthy? And praise is we need them to celebrate our existence. What this means is we don't know how to give this to ourselves. We are not self-sustaining. We are dependent on others. And as long as we stay dependent on others for these three things, we are forever going to be in a seesaw, because when we don't get it, we're going to catapult. When we get it, we're going to soar. So we're going to keep robotically being reactive to the external world. And this is what's going to have to change.
That's right. And the truth is that the heart of a woman is so vast and mystical and beautiful. And so we want to find that balance, that equipoise within that space, right? That is where our true power is. And I love you talk a lot about, you know, as girls that I love this word, that we're foraging for our worth, right? In all the wrong places. And I love that idea. And so it's shifting this notion of external focus and turning it inwards, right?
Yes, yes.
So,
I mean, at least in midlife, you know, all our youth, we get the education and we go to college and we get married and we have the children. Then, so we're checking. And
boxes.
Yes, a lot of boxes. So it's a blessing to have a midlife crisis, really, because the crisis has to come about, because we've been living conditioned. I've never met a person who hasn't had a crisis before they've liberated themselves. You have to go through a spiritual unfolding, and that means you have to have a paradigm shift within you from the conditioned to the unconditioned you. And so far, most of us have been living conditioned lives, asleep. I call the first part asleep in the matrix.
That's right. No, I love that. And it's moving from ego to spirit also, to be led in that way. And I love how, you know, this idea of this false power that we look for, that we seek. You know, we see a lot of exhibitionism with women and boss babe and this culture of take no prisoners. And I love this idea that that's really not how we're gonna make our way back to center. It's not through these false, right? Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I love your voice around this. Tell me.
I know. So we think because we are in reality, we need to fight back and we need to rebel and we need to unrest and burn the bra. Well, that's exactly what the men want us to do. They're like, yeah, burn the bra. We want to see you. So I'm just kidding. But we are in reaction mode. And in that reactivity, we're still tethered to the patriarchy. True power, you know, I talk about how Mahatma Gandhi in India, when the British were colonially ruling India, Mahatma Gandhi taught the Indians, don't keep waiting for the British to leave. Become so strong within yourself that they will be made irrelevant. And he taught the Indians to weave their own clothes, to make their own salt, to to depend on themselves, so that through their rise of power, the outside threat just dissolved.
That's
And
right.
that's what this book is doing for women, I believe. It's
Yes.
saying, don't look at anybody on the outside. Don't blame your partner. Don't
Yes.
wait for the man. There's no evil other.
Stop comparing with other women. Just, yes.
Yes. Do
Become
your
sovereign.
work.
Become
Right.
sovereign. Yes.
Yes. Become sovereign. Do your work. And if we do our work collectively and rise as one in a sisterhood, the oppression on the outside will go down. See, we have not done our part to rise. It's always the oppressed who have to rise. We can't wait for the oppressor. The oppressor's okay.
Yeah, it's working. It's a system that's been working for thousands of years. I mean, so it makes sense. And is this moment where this is shifting and you can feel it. And that's why your book, there's such an opening for it, because we know it's time. It's time to create another idea of how we can be empowered as women, right? Versus being objectified ourselves and through that view of us. Tell me about, how do we awaken? So what would be the steps of that? And I know it's not like A, B, C, and D. First of all, we have to acknowledge that this is happening, right? Secondly, like, how do you talk about trading niceness for authenticity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Right. So the first step in any spiritual awakening is to recognize the life we're living, like really wake up and go, am I okay? Am I happy? Am I authentic? Am I lying? Where am I scared? How am I sidestepping my truth? Is to really enter an awareness. So awareness is the first step of every awakening.
Am I living someone's life, someone's version of the life I should be living? Like you talked about all those boxes you check. Is it from the inside out rather than the outside in?
Right. And it's really hard to awaken. I'm telling you, you know this as a coach, without some pain. So thank goodness for those naughty children, and thank goodness for those rebellious children, because they wake you up if you're a parent, or there's some kind of tragedy in a relationship, or your boss fires you. You need a jolt.
You do.
And the jolt wakes us up to go, okay, I need to change my life.
Right.
And hopefully, before you go to the next job or the next relationship, you take yourself to a coach or a therapist, and you begin to ask them, am I doing something wrong? Like, is it me? And they'll be very happy to tell you, yes, 100%. And let's deconstruct those patterns. So one of the key questions I ask myself to change my course is, am I being authentic, or am I coming from fear? You know, where is this choice coming from? Is it because I'm scared to say what I want, or is it truly out of authenticity? And there was a period in my life where everything out of my mouth was like, to keep the peace, to keep the peace, to keep the peace. And it wasn't authentic. And I realized, oh my goodness, I'm just keeping the peace. I'm not being me. So these kinds of revelations can be scary, but these are the small stepping stones toward greater awareness, greater transformation. And working with a coach, I mean, I have to say, you're a coach, I'm a therapist. If people don't get help, this can't be. You need help. You need a book, you need a course, you need a coach, you need people by your side.
You're just spinning in your own habitual subconscious thinking all the time, and you're calling in these experiences unconsciously.
Yes, and you need somebody.
You need someone to hold space, hold the mirror, right?
Yes.
Lovingly, patiently, you know. Absolutely. It's so vital. It truly, truly is. So, you know, you talked about portals being a way to get into the authentic self. Let me ask you, how, when you're awakened, don't you find that pain doesn't have to be the touchstone anymore for growth? Once you're awakened, once you're tuning in, once you're getting a sense of like, oh, I feel a little off now. It doesn't always have to continue to be these dark nights of the soul and these bottoms to get you to grow. When you're awakened and conscious, you start to feel that direction from your higher self, the direction from your divine moving through you, whether you are connected to it or not, but that's what it can feel like. Can you speak to how you recognize ego and start to disengage from it and notice, you know, what that next right path is, or thought?
So what you're speaking to is such intimacy with yourself, where
Yes.
you've spent time with yourself so much. And this takes solitude. I meditate every day. I'm sure you have a solitude practice.
I do.
Without solitude in your life and stillness, you won't have intimacy with yourself. It's just like with an infant, you have to spend time quietly, calmly to bond. In the
Right.
same way, we've never spent that time with ourselves in an intimate way.
Mhm.
So, intimacy with the self allows you to know your inner triggers, your inner perturbations. So, for me, like for you, I'm sure, our body is very clear, you know. So, I can tell when something is off, when my
Yeah.
ego is coming in.
Yeah.
I can just tell because I now am so connected to myself that anything that's bullshit is
Yeah.
my radar goes off, even though
Yes.
I'm entertaining the bullshit, but it's my ego that's entertaining it, you
That's
know?
right.
So
Yeah.
I know who I am, but my ego sometimes gets seduced. And the minute that happens, my body will react like in a panic, in an alarm,
Yes.
like, whoa, 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 what is my ego trying to make me do? My ego's trying to take me down a fake path, a path
Yes.
that's not me. And we sense it
Right.
immediately. Like I can feel it in an email. If it feels ingenuine and I'm responding to it, I go, why am I doing that? So
Yeah.
the key is self intimacy.
Yes.
And do not try to connect to your child. Do not try to connect to your partner, please. If you connect to yourself, you will automatically be more connected to everyone around you. But we miss that step and we're
Right.
trying to connect to everyone around us.
Yes.
And we're so disconnected from the self. And we
Right.
keep repeating dysfunction because of that.
Yes. And you said so beautifully that we're not living a life, we're living a pattern. Right. And so that's the thing. That's when we're unconscious and we move into that. It starts to feel that intimacy is so yummy. There's no other relationship that can deliver. You know, you're seeking everywhere else outside of us to have that feeling of absolute radical acceptance of who we are and where we are in every moment. And also that connection that tethers you to something greater. And those, so I love how you just explained about the intimacy with self, because it really is, there isn't, I can't actually be intimate with anyone else in at that depth unless it begins with me, and it begins with a relationship to self. So, so beautiful, truly.
Right. And that's why we have poor boundaries. That's why we get
Yes.
enmeshed in repetitive arguments. And that's why we vibrate at a lower level and we get exhausted. We're crying. We're, you know, after the age of 45, like the drama in our lives has got to stop. You know, so when are we go and I say
Right.
45 because it does take a long time to wake up. But typically I see that in our 40s, we women kind of wake up.
Right.
And we got to look at the conflict in our life, the fear in our life, the hesitancy to speak our truth in a free,
Yes.
organic, floating, buoyant way,
Mm-hmm.
and the drama in our life. And if you're having too much conflict, drama, hesitancy, and too much fear, these are your red flags that you
That's right.
need to get help to detangle from your current patterns. And it takes 6 months, maybe a year, depending on how stubborn we are. And your coach or your therapist can help you to literally turn your life around. Or you can get my book. I forgot. I have to plug my book. Or
Get the
get my
book.
book. Get the book.
That's so great, and it's so true. And how triggers are the way in. Triggers are those flags on the field, right? Of like, oh, take a look here. And that's when you're in that conversation with yourself, and they're just going to keep coming around. The unconscious is going to just keep delivering it. It's not a saboteur in the inside, the unconscious, the subconscious. It's this part of you that's seeking wholeness in situations. So it keeps calling shadow up everywhere, right?
Yes,
So
yes. So,
that
while somebody says here,
what is
bedroom candy says, my
Oh, I can hear you breaking up. I don't know if it's you or it's me.
can you hear me? I can hear you so well. Can you guys hear us?
I can't hear you
Oh,
right this minute.
okay. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can.
Oh
Say
my
what you said.
goodness. I'm so sorry. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, I could see you and hear you the whole time, just FYI.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just your voice.
Okay, I'm sorry,
You
sweetie.
were reading what someone was saying. Do you remember the gist of it?
Yes. So this girl was saying that her sister Coretta is 12 years older than her and she loves to pick arguments.
Mm,
So I was just going to say that that's an opportunity for you to not play your part in the dynamic.
yeah.
Let her. So we have dynamics like this.
Mm,
One person has to detangle, and then the
yes,
other person will just do their own thing. But you
that's
have to
right.
be this person who takes themselves out of the equation.
That's right. And you're fully empowered to do that at any time. If it's a sister,
Yes,
any relative, like we always get to ask, who am I in relation to this person? Right?
yes,
However
yes.
they're showing up, they're allowed. They have full permission to be as crazy as they want, but I'm deciding because I'm the caretaker. And that's what a boundary is, right? I'm deciding who I want to be in relation to that, how I want to expose myself to that, and how do I feel around it. So
Right. And
that's
there's a lot of discipline. To create boundaries, you have to have a lot of self-awareness
yeah,
so you don't get sucked in, a lot of discipline, a lot of observing. And that's why you have to be so grounded in your own sense of self so nobody can just pull you out of your body.
right. Yeah, because it can happen on the gross level and it can happen on the energetic level, Dr. Shefali. Sometimes you're around a group or a person and they're saying all the right things and you walk away and something's just not right. So that's like the master class, right?
Yes,
Of
yes,
feeling through that. Yeah. I wanted to
yeah.
mention one last thing. Go ahead, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Just as we begin to know ourselves, that master level of awareness and intuition comes with that settling into yourself, because as we connect to the self, we untether from the outside world and our
Yeah.
senses heighten.
Yes, yes, for sure, for sure. And we're safeguarding that relationship within.
Yeah.
It's, that's really it. So I wanted to ask you one more thing about marriage because I did a show yesterday and I was talking about the exact same thing. And then I heard you say the same quote. And I was like, yes, I love that you're saying this about marriage, that it's not whoever stays the longest wins. It's about the quality of time and what's happening in that container of the marriage. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Right. So model of marriage is based on longevity. Like who can stay the longest, who can suffer or stick through this the longest. And it should really be
Right.
about
There's no prize
growth.
at the end.
There's no
Yeah.
right. Don't
Right.
expect to
No,
win anything for suffering.
no.
And there's no nobility, no virtue in suffering. And instead it should be on a growth based model. And are we
Yes.
growing together? Are we supporting each other's freedom? And when you shift the perspective, then there is no such thing as a nasty divorce, because
Right.
we support each other to become the most free people we can be.
Yes.
Marriage right now is based on ownership and possession and control. and
Yes.
and we need to break that institutional model and understand that marriage should only be about growth and freedom.
That's right. And the biggest love there is I want you to be happy with your in this or outside of this. Like that's what
Yes,
another level of unconditional loving, if it serves for the highest good for your evolution, that's that conscious uncoupling we hear that phrase bandied about, but truly that's that there is no failure, hopefully
absolutely.
that you're leaving because you've worked it in every possible angle you can, both internally and collectively. And then what's left there, the door prizes are the wins, the awakenings that you've had, the triggers that have been noticed, how you've grown and evolved. So I love that you talk about that. So
we
powerful.
are we are very much a culture that is very childish, that believes in enmeshment, and we get scared to walk away from things. We get scared to release things, to have distance and
Yes.
space and be alone. And that's why marriage
Yes.
is forever and enmeshed. And the most beautiful
Yes.
thing you can do for yourself at some point in your life, whether married or not, is to enter solitude. And you and I are talking about solitude being so important. And I would say if there was one missing ingredient, which the pandemic hopefully gave us, was some more solitude. We're
Yeah.
so afraid to be alone. And this is a real weakness in us. Our soul, if you want to look at it, our essence, will not be able to develop fully if we're constantly dependent on other people. It needs an experience of complete alone. We're going from box to box to box, and then we hit a midlife crisis, you know?
Yes. No, it's so true. I was in a marriage and then I had kids and then I was single for many years. And it's like that solitude that I had during that time, it was created a new baseline for me of
Yes.
what it meant to feed myself and sustain myself. And then the next relationship that came in, he had to fit inside of this new paradigm that I'd created.
Yes.
So it was so beautiful. And I still, when I go, they sometimes he'll take the kids and I have this space and this breadth that I crave, and I need that time with me. I'm my own greatest asset, and my own greatest ally too. So I know that's what
Yes.
we've touched on many times here.
Yes.
So it creates
Yes.
freedom within the relationship, and we've been together 14 years. And so it's not, it is what it is, but it does create a feeling of freedom, a feeling
Yes.
of you're here, it's for the highest. If not, we'll move in a different direction, and I
Yes.
trust that. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
beautiful. It's a
beautiful.
journey.
You're not
All
right. You're not operating from craving or childishness or neediness or dependency. It's wholeness. And when two people come together from wholeness, it's a whole different
it
energy.
is. There is no you complete me, right? This whole
No,
idea of the better
no.
half and all, oh my God, let's just let that go finally once and
Yeah,
for
we don't
all.
want any half person.
No,
Yes.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Oh, my dear. Thank you so much. I
Oh,
really enjoyed
thank you guys.
our satsang together.
Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about my book. Guys, if you want to grab a copy anywhere, it's available. But I'm doing a course starting on Sunday at aradicalawakening.com. So if you want to go check out my course, it's at aradicalawakening.com. Thank you so much, Ryan. You're clearly a gifted coach. So I hope people use your services and learn from you.
As
You're
well.
definitely a gifted presence. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to have been here.
Oh, thank you, my dear. And thank you for the light that you're shining on the planet in the ways that you are. Truly, truly, I feel it and I'm excited about it. So
Thank you
everyone go
so
get the book.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.